Mesdames et messieurs,
The greatest festival of our contemporary society, the Olympic Games, is about to begin.
this is gonna be close.
Oh! They're all completely gassed! They've given it everything on the global bucket! Oh, yeah! Go! Oh!
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. But that is an Olympic championship.
Ready?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Keep the Flame Alive, the podcast for fans of the Olympics and Paralympics. If you love the games, we are the show for you. Each week we share stories from athletes and people behind the scenes to help you have more fun watching the games. I am your host, Jill Jaracz, joined as always by my lovely co-host, Alison Brown. Alison, hello, how are you?
Hello. Today is the first full day of spring, which means I'm going to go outside and engage in some competitive egg balancing.
Egg balancing.
Have you not heard this? That on the spring equinox, at a certain time, you can balance eggs.
I
They'll
did not
stay
know
upright.
this.
So the competition lasts about 30 seconds because it's just at that right moment, and your eggs will not topple over.
Far out. Well, good luck. I hope
Thank
you bring
you.
home the gold and not the golden egg yolk.
Though that could be tasty.
All right. We have got a ton of Paris news today, including, the ongoing saga. I would guess it's a Russian novella. Here we go. But
It's a
ongoing,
lot.
yeah, it is. Ongoing saga with Russia, tons of Paris news. But first, we want to look ahead a little bit. You know that host nations typically get a slot for every team sport at a games. So come the LA 2028 Paralympics, the U.S. will have the opportunity to be in the blind football or soccer tournament for the very first time. But to participate, you have to develop a competitive team, which is a years-long process. So today we're getting a look at that process from Molly Quinn. Molly is the CEO of the United States Association of Blind Athletes. She was hired as the USABA's first CEO in 2000 to help the organization expand its mission to involve more children and adults in life-changing physical activity. Prior to joining the USABA, Molly was the VP of Fitness and Endurance Partnerships with St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. We talked with Molly about the development of a blind football team and how that works with the organization's mission and its other sports leadership in goalball. Take a listen. Molly Quinn, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Blind soccer is the last Paralympic sport that the U.S. is going to compete in at the Paralympic level. And on the surface, one could go, why has it taken it so long for the U.S. to be in blind soccer? But from an organizational standpoint, it's a really different situation. So talk to us about what the steps are involved with creating a national team for this sport.
So let's start a little bit at the beginning here. So the United States Association of Blind Athletes is the national governing body for two Paralympic team sports. The first is goalball, GOALBALL, and then the second is blind football. We're going to refer to it as blind soccer here in the United States. And as part of being a national governing body, that means that we are certified under the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee umbrella of governing sports across the country. And we received that designation to be responsible for blind soccer in the United States in January of 2022. So we're 2 years into our efforts in order to build this sport from the ground up, which is a monumental undertaking. But our organization, along with our board of directors, is very committed to this journey from that standpoint.
What is involved with becoming certified by the USOPC?
That's a great question. Becoming certified by the USOPC has a lot of different buckets of responsibilities, including sport safety, audit and compliance, reporting on where your sport's at. It also includes high performance so that we can receive funding in order to find the best athletes across the country so that we can have them prepared for either one of our two Paralympic team sports. It is a process of certification that happens every 4 years. And as a matter of fact, the United States Association of Blind Athletes will enter its recertification process in Q3 of this year.
How long does that process take?
That process can take a number of months. It usually is anywhere between 4 to 8 months, depending on where your organization is at from that standpoint. And I think what's important is a lot of people don't understand, I think, in the world of sports, the importance of what role the committee plays so that we're making sure every day that we're safe. If we're safe, we'll be successful from that standpoint. So myself, along with a team of people, go through this 4 to 8 month process in order to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's and making sure that we're providing the best that we can to our membership and our elite athletes.
You joined USABA in 2020. Where was blind soccer in the priorities of the organization at this point?
So the priorities of blind soccer in 2020, it was also COVID. And so I think that had a lot to do with what everybody's priorities were across the world. And from USABA's standpoint, our programming we had no live event programming. And so during that time was when we really set forth what we wanted blind soccer to look like in the United States. And in May of 2023, our board of directors approved our 5-year strategic plan and vision, moving from Paris and then into the LA Quad, so that we will be in the best position possible in order to field a competitive team. And also, what's important, it's not just fielding a competitive team, it's making sure that there is sustainable blind soccer sites across the country so that we can continue to provide opportunities, activities, and resources for blind and visually impaired participants who want to do more through the world of sport.
So in a way, it sounds like the pandemic, although you couldn't have live events, that was helpful in the way that it gave the organization time to build a solid strategy going forward.
Absolutely, 100%. We utilized our time as best as we could in order to make sure that we could move forward with the right direction. And since coming out of COVID and at the beginning of, it was more at the end of November 2022 is when we named the first USA blind soccer men's national team. And what's so important about that moment in time for the organization is it provided us the platform where we could start building awareness, educating people across the US on this sport, and also the first 10 athletes that were selected in order to represent the US and put on a USA blind soccer jersey.
Earlier, you said if you're safe, you'll be successful. What does that actually look like in real terms?
So I've been in the sports marketing, event management, and philanthropic world most of my career. And I think what's important when you make decisions is making sure that you're thinking through them safely and also mitigating risk for the organization. And so it's a phrase that we use that we've thought through a lot of the different elements of how we put together camps, how we put together clinics, and making sure that they're safe first and foremost, and knowing that that safety aspect is so important that we will be successful.
And you said you started putting together camps. How are you finding your athletes?
Great question. How are we finding our athletes? Well, as a sport organization that's dedicated to providing resources for blind and visually impaired participants, the sport of goalball has certainly helped us with finding some of those elite level athletes. We are the most decorated men's and women's programs globally. And so that's another piece that's really helped us with our foundation of how we go about athlete recruitment and retention from that standpoint. The way that we look at blind soccer, because of the familiarity of a global sport, it's really helped us think a lot bigger. One of the things that's difficult with the sport of goalball is that it does not have an Olympic counterpart. And so it makes it tough to be able to market such a great sport on a regular basis. As soon as you say the word blind soccer, people are automatically intrigued and they want to know how the sport is played, so on and so forth. So the way that we have approached this strategic plan and where we want to go is we need partners. And obviously the world of soccer has many, many large organizations already promoting both elite level soccer and youth soccer across the country. We're very fortunate to be a recipient of US Soccer's Innovate to Grow program, which has allowed us to kick off blind soccer sites in 7 cities across the country with funding that they provide to help with coaches, equipment. Do we need to rent a field? And so that support from US Soccer Federation has been incredible, and they're a great partner. Another partner that we have is US Youth Soccer, and there's a state association in every state across the country. And what we're doing is working with individual state associations one at a time in order to find more adaptive soccer programs where we can recruit participants from. So I would say that the 2 largest soccer organizations that help us recruit are those 2 organizations. And then a lot of this is word of mouth, and also the 44 state schools for the blind. Right now, there are, according to our research and what we do on a daily basis, we have 10 schools for the blind actively participating and providing blind soccer right now across the United States. And so our goal is to work more closely with those state schools so that if there's a boy or a girl that's interested in pursuing this sport at beyond the recreational level, they connect to the United States Association of Blind Athletes for the next step, to be invited to a development camp. So that's pretty much the progression of how athlete recruitment works at a high performance level. First, we work with kids and youth at a recreational level. Then they're invited to a development camp. And then from there, they could be invited to what we would call a development national camp. I will add one area that we have seen a lot of success in the last 5 or 6 months is we've started a virtual combine where participants can go ahead and fill out a survey, provide us with some information, and then most importantly, they provide us with some videos on how well they know how to play blind soccer. And then from there, our coaching staff and our high performance team makes a decision if 1 or 2 of those athletes is going to be selected to come to a national camp.
Where's the elite coaching staff coming from? Is it coming from not blind soccer or from other blind sports?
Great question. So our current coaching staff is a mixture of, first and foremost, somebody who has almost 20 years of experience in the high performance arena with adaptive sports. Very, very important from that perspective. And then the rest of the coaching staff has experience with blind soccer and then also with soccer in general at the club level and at what I would call the minor league level. And the other part that's interesting about blind soccer is that the goalkeepers are sighted. And so we also have to be recruiting sighted goalkeepers in order to be a part of the team. So it's a dual recruitment process.
What about for the women's side of the sport? In that, one of the things I was reading and preparing for this was that you're hoping to also be able to field a team of women for 2028. We don't know yet if women's soccer is on the program, but what does that side look like as well?
Great question. So, right now, at the highest level of blind soccer, which is managed by an international federation called the International Blind Sports Federation, they're responsible for this sport. And for the first time last year, there was a women's world championship held, and there were 8 countries that participated. The United States was not one of those countries. The US will be looking at launching women's blind soccer within the next year in hopes of having an exhibition as part of the LA 28 games. Right now, blind soccer for women is not on the LA program, and that process takes years and years to make happen. So, from our perspective, we are looking at women's blind soccer would come on the program at Brisbane in 2032.
I realize we've been using the term blind, and most of the time in the Paralympics, they're using the term visually impaired. Is there a significant difference to that? Is one better or worse, or it doesn't matter?
It has to do with classification. So every sport in the Paralympic or in the adaptive program has a classification level. And for blind and visually impaired athletes, the classification is B1, B2, or B3. And for ease of just explaining this in a short period of time, a B1 is somebody who is blind, a B2 is somebody who has some vision, and a B3 is somebody who has low vision, and then every kind of scenario in between. For the sport of goalball, you are able to play as a B1, B2, or a B3 athlete. And at the Paralympic Games or at a World Championship Games, you have to put tape over your eyes. And then also you're wearing blacked out eye shades. And so that's what makes the sport fair from the standpoint of the different variations of the classification between B1, B2, and B3. For blind football in the Paralympic Games, it is currently a men's B1 sport. And so when you look at that's the difference of why it's also called blind football from that standpoint, because it is just B1 athletes. And then on the women's side, it looks like they are sticking with women being able to play at a B1, a B2, or a B3 classification. And again, you still have to have tape over your eyes and put on eye shades in order to make the playing field equal from the different athletes in that standpoint.
How is having the World Cup be partially in the US in 2026 a possible help for the sport of blind football here?
So incredibly excited. Cannot wait. It has really been one of the areas that our business development team has been focused on, so that in certain strategic areas of the country, we are looking at 3 or 4 building blind soccer sites that are also local organizing committees responsible for the World Cup underneath the FIFA umbrella. And we've had some great conversations within those cities, because what we want to be able to do is, again, continue to educate, build that awareness, and also be a part of the World Cup in general, so that people can have a better understanding of what soccer looks like in the United States and how much we're growing from an adaptive level to provide these opportunities.
Was the organization happy that when the games were awarded in 2017 that LA didn't get 2024, they got 2028 instead? And it sounds like for blind soccer, this was an incredible gift in a way to have that extra time and be able to build these extra partnerships.
100%. I wasn't here at the time, but I would say it is an incredible gift. And the other part, as a part of that gift, is the LA 28 initiative and the legacy that that games wants to leave behind for the city of Los Angeles is to provide more opportunities for youth sports with a huge focus on adaptive sports. And so the United States Association of Blind Athletes is headed into its third fall season in 2024, offering free blind and visually impaired soccer clinics in the Los Angeles area at 2 park and rec locations. What this has also done is helped us open up doors to the Los Angeles Unified School District, which is the largest school district in the country, in order to provide some type of, physical education and recreational opportunity for kids who may not have an opportunity, and also for their parents. Because when you think about your son or daughter and they're looking at a sport and they're saying something along the lines of participating in blind and visually impaired soccer, there's a commitment there. And so it's been great that we've been able to work with the Los Angeles Park and Rec program in order to provide these free clinics to kids within Los Angeles. And we've had a great turnout, and we're continuing just to go deeper in Los Angeles to find boys and girls who want to be a part of potentially the LA 28 games or part of a national program here down the road.
So, what are the specific challenges when you look at LA 28? What keeps you up at night?
So, when we look at LA 28, we want to be able to put our best foot forward in regards to fielding a competitive team. And when we look at what that entails over the next quad starting in 2025, as I mentioned before, it's a monumental undertaking. I think one of our biggest challenges is finding youth and adults to participate in the sport. And specifically, right now, because the classification is B1, is finding male B1 athletes who want to participate in a sport that's a little bit more aggressive than other sports that they may have been a part of. Our strategic plan that we have in place for the next 5 years has us in a really great position to move through all of the work that we need to do. And one area that we're launching in 2024, which will really help this effort from a recruitment standpoint, is coach and referee certification. Without coaches, we don't have athletes, and without athletes, we don't have coaches. And so that program is going to be launching at the end of Q1. And I think once that launches, that's really going to help us with the recruitment from that standpoint.
How are you doing this on the association's budget, which is not very big? That's what I want to know. How are you managing 2 Paralympic sports plus trying to make opportunities for athletes of all levels and all ages on a budget that's less than $2 million?
So the way that we look at this is strategic partnerships with, as I mentioned earlier, with US Soccer, US Youth Soccer, and also through the adaptive sports programs. I think that what is important is we can't be everything to everybody. And this organization has had to make some tough decisions in the last, call it 8 to 16 months, on other programming opportunities that we're not able to do because of having 3 national teams that will be qualified for Los Angeles, that's a lot of pressure from that standpoint in order to perform. And so our focus has really been on how are we going to continue to build these 2 Paralympic team sports and also make sure that those programs are sustainable within communities across the country. And then what we've really had to do is work more closely with community partners. At the end of the day, we have the expertise and the experience in these 2 team sports. And what we want to be able to do is bring that experience to these community partners and give them the tools to be and to teach them and give them the tools so that they can go and lead the sport within their local communities. And we're off to a great start from that initiative, and really the coach and referee certification for both of our sports, which will launch in 2024, will help that effort tremendously, because then you'll have people who will know how to coach the sport and then can lead our vision and our mission forward.
One last quick question, but what's been the response from the athletes who have gotten involved and now have gotten the introduction to blind soccer as a sport that could be for them?
It's fantastic. Our first national team camp is the first week in February, and we have 10 athletes who have been invited to this development camp. And coming out of this camp in late February, early March, we will name the 2024 national team. And they're very involved in our content, our social media, and helping us get the word out, not just only nationally, but within their individual communities across the country.
Excellent. Well, Molly, thank you so much. We are so excited to see the development of the sport here in the US, and we're looking forward to following it through 2028 and beyond.
Great. Thank you for having me this morning. Really excited that we were able to share more about the sport and what our vision is in order to provide these opportunities across the United States.
Thank you so much, Molly. You can follow along with the team at usaba.org and Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We will have all of those in the show notes.
Guess what sport?
Oh, weightlifting. Yes, let's just get this doping news out of the way. The International Weightlifting Federation has officially changed the results from the men's plus 105 kilogram category from London 2012, a mere 12 years ago. 2 athletes have been disqualified, including the original bronze medal winner. Places 3 through 8 have been reallocated, and Quinn from Korea will be the new bronze medalist, and the medal ceremony is to be determined. There's also been some reallocation of items in our very own TeePublic store.
There has. And I got a text this week, as did you, of some fantastic children modeling our shirts.
Oh, yes, we did.
Yes, superfan Sarah sent us pictures of her boys with the pomme de terre de sofa featured design for Paris 2024. And we do have a whole bunch of Paris 2024 designs, some new things on t-shirts and mugs and hoodies. They're very good with coupons, and those will pop up automatically. So you can get all your fashion for Paris and be ready to go.
That's right.
So that is at our website, flamealivepod.com. And you just scroll down to the bottom to store, and that will take you right to our TeePublic store, and you can get everything you need for Paris.
Be sure to look fashionable. We'll be looking, and when we're in Paris, we will be looking for TKFLASTANis wearing the shirts. That's for sure.
Absolutely. We'll be looking and taking pictures.
That's right. So get your gear while it's hot.
Oh, beaucoup.
Yeah, we do have a lot of news. It is, as of this taping, it is 128 days to go to Paris 2024, which, you know, for me, 128 days to go is not very long, but I feel like 100 days out is a long ways away still.
A lot of things are going to happen between now and the 100 days out. Things happening.
Right. And then everything will just fly by. So, big news of the week is that as you recall last week we had the International Paralympic Committee's decisions on how they were going to deal with the neutral athletes from Russia and Belarus. And this week we've got the IOC's response. So, they will be called the individual neutral athletes, or athlète individuel neutral. The abbreviation for them will be AIN if you're keeping track at home, although you won't see them show up in the medal results at all. Their results will be kept off of the medal tables. Currently qualified are 12 athletes from Russia and 7 from Belarus. The IOC projects that there will be 36 from Russia and 22 from Belarus. This will be under their maximum quotas, which are 54 athletes from Russia and 28 from Belarus, which I thought was interesting. I didn't realize they put a quota on this.
Well, there would have to be because no teams. So that
Right.
just may be what could possibly qualify in.
Oh, right. When you think of the sports that are still allowing athletes to come in. Okay.
Correct.
If you want to compare this to what their last Olympic appearance was in Tokyo 2020, Russia had a team of 330 and Belarus had a team of 104.
Now, what was not clear to me was of those 12 Russians and 7 Belarusians that have qualified, have they been approved based on the IOC guidelines?
I am not sure because there is this element of a panel review where there are 3 IOC members who make up a panel, and they will be reviewing all of the qualifiers to see whether or not that they don't violate these guidelines of being supportive of Russia in the war.
And on that panel is Pau Gasol, the basketball player. Which I thought was a great little tidbit because he had a reputation as being like a good guy when he was playing in the NBA. So I'm hoping that that makes it not quite so controversial with him being on the panel.
The IOC will publish a list of athletes and support personnel who passed the panel review and will have been invited to the games. They did release the flag for the AIN athletes. It's a aqua color flag. If you're into design, it's Pantone 2399C. The base of it is aqua. In the center there's a big white circle with an emblem in it that says AIN in the center and individual neutral athlete individual neutral around the edge. So it's colorful compared to the IPC choice,
which look like the generic groceries of the black and white labels.
So we'll see that. They have also produced an anthem for AIN in case they have a medal ceremony, and it goes like this. That has no lyrics, although I can tell you I've been working on some in my head.
It also doesn't exactly have a great musical quality.
Well,
John Williams was not involved in that movie theme.
No, and I wonder how they kind of, because to me it sounds a little long, but I wonder if it's like, okay, we need to time how long it takes to lift a flag in whatever kind of stadium setting you're in. Yeah. All I got in my head is like, yeah, no lyrics, but we are athletes neutral.
I think it sounds like the music that they play at the end of every sports movie we watch for the sweeping, triumphant moment. But I guess that's kind of what they're going for. They want it. In the past, they have given the Russian athletes competing as neutral very Russian elements. They had Tchaikovsky music. They
Mhm.
let them wear their colors. And this, they're saying, guess what, guys? There is nothing Russian about this.
Very true. Very true. So we will see how often we will hear that, but at least you've heard it here. They will not march in the Parade of Nations in the opening ceremonies because they are individual athletes, and what marches in the parade are nations. So the IOC has said that these athletes will have an opportunity to experience the event. Not sure what that means, but they said it was going to be in the spirit of what happened in Barcelona 1992 with the independent Olympic participants who were the former Yugoslavia. So we'll see how that goes. Decisions on the closing ceremony participation will be made later as teams don't march in that. Athletes just come in individually and they're kind of mixed up. So you may see some athletes there, but we'll have to see. Needless to say, with this whole AIN plan, Russia not happy.
You know,
Mm.
I can validate a lot of comments about Thomas Bach. You want to call him power hungry and he doesn't want to lose his job. You want to say he's too namby-pamby. You can say lots of things about Thomas Bach. But the Russians have dropped the German Nazi bomb on him, which, everyone at this press conference was horrified. Bach wouldn't even address it. Mark Adams, who's the press secretary, addressed it. And it is so wrong on so many levels, not the least of which we do have neo-Nazism in the world, and it's not Thomas Bach, and you're diminishing people who are victims of that kind of violence and discrimination. So I don't know what the Russians are doing and why we're throwing this word around again. I mean, I know why they're doing it, but this is not going to help you.
The IOC has approved 7 athletes to change nations for Paris. None of these are really familiar names to me, but there are 2 Russians in this mix. That would be Anastasia Kirpichnikova, who is a swimmer. She will now be representing France. And Alexander Komarov is a wrestler who will be now representing Serbia. And I wonder if we're going to see any more changes of nationality before Paris. If there's time, I'm not sure.
There have been some in the last 2 years
Mhm.
already, so this may be the bit of tail end changes that were available to them.
Could be, and I wonder how well that goes over in Russia. I mean, people have their reasons for changing nationalities all the time. So I wonder if they're just like, we've got new countries now and we're living there. We want to represent the new country. Also, guess who you'll see at Paris 2024 again?
Guatemala.
That's right. The IOC has provisionally lifted the suspension on the Guatemala National Olympic Committee. So these athletes will be able to march under their flag and wear the uniform for Paris again. The IOC has mentioned that Champions Park will be an option for medal reallocation ceremonies. So Champions Park is like, as I thought about it today, because they talk about this being the first ever time they're doing this, but it's not really. It's a medals plaza, but instead the new element is having a runway type catwalk where athletes will walk down with their medals. So it's possible that medal reallocation ceremonies will happen there. Maybe a team figure skating medal ceremony.
Or medal ceremonies from 12 years ago.
Could be. We don't know. No more pandemic means that the intimacy ban at the Village has been lifted. Laurent Michaud, who is the director of the Village, told Sky News that they will have 300,000 condoms for the games, which is about 2 each per day for every games day. Although I think that's simple math and we have rolling people coming in and out of the Village all the time, depending on when they're competing.
This is a story in which you should not use the word rolling. Especially when not followed by the phrase "in the hay."
And coincidentally, we got a press release from a company called Cam Soda, who they provide adult products, and they said, "Oh, hey, we're going to send 1,000 bottles of Gold Flake lubricant to Paris." We have no idea whether this was asked for. We have no idea, like, where do you ship that to?
I guess it's to the Athletes Village supply house. Maybe the bathrooms, like in the nightclubs.
I don't know, but we may have to ask if anybody sees some Gold Flake lubricant around.
Well, we do have the opportunity to do the tours.
We do. That's right. That's right. We'll have to ask.
We'll go over well on that one.
We got a note from listener Katie, who told us about an event tied to the Cultural Olympiad. It's called Exposition Les Marseillaises et le Sport. It's an exhibition of sportswomen in Marseille. The track is getting done. This is very cool. Mondo supplies the track. It will be purple. And I've read that it may be faster than Tokyo. Track is always on my list of how it gets faster.
How did you not say that? Mondo.
No, because Mondo won't return my messages. But I will keep trying. The draw for the basketball tournaments has happened, even though 4 of the men's countries aren't yet known because the qualifying tournaments are still to happen. The women's tournament is fully set. We will have a link to the groups in the show notes, and we will update our viewing guide as soon as we have full information on that. If you're going, the Paris 2024 Tickets app is now available in iOS and Android, but the functions for accessing your tickets, transferring them, and reselling them will not be available until mid-May.
So fear not, you will have assigned seats, just not yet.
Exactly. And then NBC announced some developments, and thank you to listener Brittany for pointing this one in our direction. They have partnered with AMC movie theaters to air live coverage of the games at the movie theater.
I'm so confused by this because of the time of day. Is this because it's live? So I guess it would have to be midday?
Yeah, I would guess so. I'm not quite sure what the schedule will be like, but it sounds like, yeah, it'd be a good way to spend a day, especially if it's hot and you want some air conditioning. I don't know if they're going to have multiple screens. But.
Well, I guess you could bring your phone into the theater. But when you think about it, that's a really great way because it'll be big screen. You'll be with other people. So you can experience that group dynamic.
And I would be curious how the sound sounds on the surround sound element of it. It would be interesting also if they had different events in different theaters. Like just you could maybe bop back and forth.
And it'll be interesting also to see how this works with summer movie season, because that's kind of the height of summer movie season, and what theaters are being purchased for those movies versus what NBC is purchasing to have that air.
Good question. But if you do something at maybe 10 in the morning to get something in the afternoon or early evening in Paris, maybe it's worth it. Don't know. If you go to AMC to watch the Olympics, please let us know what it's like and what the experience is like. Because my guess is this is an experiment. And who knows if it's going to happen again. Could be once.
And how much it's going to cost. We don't know that yet either.
Yeah, right. But we will keep an eye out for more details of that. NBC is also going to have a new live show during the games called Gold Zone, which will be on Peacock. This will be on from 7 in the morning till 5 in the evening Eastern Time every day from July 27 to August 10. Hosts will be Scott Hansen, Andrew Siciliano, Matt Eisman, and Akbar Bajamila Bila, with special guests on often every day. And the show will feature highlights from what's going on at the time to help keep you on top of the day's action. Could be cool.
Yo, Gabba Gabba.
We have more stadium news drama from Brisbane 2032. And things have been going kind of off the rails in the news, I think, in an attempt to get some headlines. So much so that there's claims that they may have wanted to give back the games. But I don't know. It's one of those, what is real, what is exaggerated. But we do have the results of a 60-day review of the stadium situation, which was triggered by the government's decision, maybe with a little John Coates in their ears, to scrap the plan to tear down and rebuild the GABA. That would have cost $2.7 billion. The review's commissioner, former Brisbane Lord Mayor Graham Quirk, reported, yes, let's not tear down and rebuild the GABA. Instead, let's spend $700 million more and build a brand new stadium in Victoria Park. So the Queensland Premier, Stephen Miles, has rejected that option, preferring to use two existing stadiums, Suncorp Stadium for the opening and closing ceremonies, and the Queensland Sports and Athletics Centre for athletics, and then include $500 million for upgrades to the GABA. But even with those upgrades, accessibility is still going to be an issue in that stadium. This has been a point of conversation at IOC press conferences over the last couple of days, with the IOC being big on, look, Agenda 2020, which I noticed they kept saying Agenda 2020 and not Agenda 2020 plus 5. Have we already forgotten our own clever name for Agenda 2020 plus 5, IOC?
I think we're going to have to start a drinking game at the IOC press conferences. Every time Thomas Bach says Agenda 2020.
But they were pretty adamant in the, hey, this is the deal now. Don't build a new stadium. Do not build a new stadium. We will, the game, and they kept saying the games will adapt to what you already have. And we don't want new. We want what you've got or temporary.
I thought it was very interesting when at the IOC press conference earlier today, one of the reporters made a comment about this being the smallest stadium to be used for the Olympics since Amsterdam. And I have to absolutely fact check that because that seems outrageous. But then when I thought about it, I said, maybe that's possible because so many stadiums were built.
Mm-hmm.
Especially post World War II, there was a lot of stadiums that got rebuilt specifically for the games. So this may be a tiny stadium. I don't know. But LA is using two stadiums for their opening ceremonies. Why can't Brisbane?
Good question. And we'll see how that LA plan works out because I still can't wrap my brain around that. Also can't wrap my brain around doing the ceremony on the Seine, but that's neither here nor there. But it's interesting how the media goes, oh my gosh, we can't believe the stadium that you want to build is so expensive. And then on the flip side go, well, if you don't have a new stadium, is that going to be good enough for you, IOC? And I think we're very used to the concept of the big stadium era. And it seems to be kind of hard for some media to get their head wrapped around the fact that the IOC really wants to make a change. It sounds like the IOC really wants to make a change.
Referencing that same conference today, Thomas Bach very much said, go back to the proposal that Brisbane did. And it says no new construction of a stadium. So he was very strongly placed at the side of, we don't want you building these giant stadiums. And I think the idea is, one, they don't want the white elephant yoke around their necks. And they don't want to keep getting blamed for cities going over budget. There's this idea that the IOC wants. So then when this city, like Montreal, spends 50 years trying to pay off its debt, who's to blame for that? And Thomas Bach is completely correct in saying, you've got a stadium, please don't build one for us, because then we get the blame as the quote unquote Olympics that we put you into debt. Not good for
Right.
the brand.
Not good for the brand. So yeah, they're trying to change that look. We'll see. I find it funny with the way that you can't win in the media.
Oh no, now all of a sudden the media has discovered it might be hot in France in August. It's like, don't we have enough awful things? And we have enough awful things in the Olympic world and in the Paralympic world. You don't need to create controversy. Let's investigate more corruption. Let's investigate, bribery. There's so many things that are bad and could use that media spotlight. But no, we're talking about heat and bed bugs and trash strikes.
Right.
Though trash strikes would be a problem, as would bed bugs. Just for myself.
As we've mentioned, the IOC has had an executive board meeting this week, which has meant some press conferences and a lot of news releases, including a big statement against politicizing sport, calling out the new friendship games that the Russian government is organizing. I almost said Soviet Union there. I really almost said Soviet Union.
Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia will be competing in those. Well, it does feel very Soviet era. Like, I feel like we're back there, and it's so... It hurts. It hurts.
Right, and it does even harken up the Goodwill Games from the U.S., which is what the U.S. developed to take place of the boycotted Olympic Games, and it went on for a few years, but didn't last all that long. We'll see how the Friendship Games does. The summer edition is supposed to be this September in 2024, and the first winter edition will be in 2026, and that will be held in Sochi. So, legacy.
It's getting used for something.
Right. The IOC says the Russian government is approaching countries directly to participate and going around the sports federations. And that is another violation of the Olympic Charter and infringement of some of their related UN resolutions. The IOC also claims that they will be using athletes as propaganda, and they have concerns about the lack of anti-doping standards that could take place. Therefore, they said, quote, the Olympic movement strongly condemns any initiative to fully politicize sport, in particular, the establishment of fully politicized sports events by the Russian government. The IOC strongly urges all stakeholders of the Olympic movement and all governments to reject any participation in and support of any initiative that intends to fully politicize international sport, end quote. So I have misplaced my chart of what strongly and very strongly and strongly
Forcefully.
condemns. Yes, I've lost that chart. So I don't know where this lands on the temperature warning gauge of the IOC.
I think it sounds like the Friendship Games and the Enhanced Games should just merge into one event.
As well, they should. They should. But we'll see. I'm curious to see what nations do participate.
China, North Korea.
Right. And then what will that mean for the Olympic movement after that? Because I'm sure if China participates in the Friendship Games, they will also still want to participate in the Olympic Games. We'll see how this goes. It's just, if it happens, it's going to open up a whole can of worms. As we've talked about legacy being an issue with the IOC, we've got some legacy news from Rio 2016, London 2012, and Atlanta 1996, which we will be talking about in our Facebook group, and you'll also be able to see it in our newsletter because it's piling up on us, really.
And you can join the Keep the Flame Alive podcast group on Facebook or sign up for the newsletter at the website flamealivepod.com. Welcome to TKFLASTAN.
It is the time of the show where we check in with our team, Keep the Flame Alive. These are past guests of the show and listeners who make up our citizenship of TKFLASTAN, our very own country. First up,
Annika Malasinski competed in the final Nordic Combined World Cup of the season in Trondheim. She finished 18th place for her 14th top 20 finish of the season. She finished the season also in 14th place in the overall standings.
Steve Empt and Team USA placed 9th in the World Wheelchair Curling Championships. In the Wheelchair Curling World Championships with a record of 5 and 6.
Monica Quimby and the U.S. Women's Development Sled Hockey Team beat Canada 7-2 in the third and final game of the 2024 Sled Series. They swept the series this year.
And commentator Ollie Hogbin is in Miami commentating at the WTA tennis tournament there. So, Ollie, if you're listening, look north and wave at us. And that's going to do it for this episode. Let us know what you think about the development of blind football in the U.S.
Find us on X Threads and Instagram at FlameAlivePod. You can send us an email at flamealivepod@gmail.com. Call or text us at 208-352-6348. That's 208-FLAME-IT. Chat with us and other fans on our Facebook group, Keep the Flame Alive Podcast, and sign up for the weekly newsletter with even more Olympic and Paralympic info for you at our website, flamealivepod.com.
Next week, we are going to be talking about a new book coming out that's called All in Stride, and we'll have a few episodes around this book, talking with some of the athletes involved, including our very own TKFLASTANi, Samantha Schultz. But next week, we will be talking with its author, Joanna Garten, and learning more about the stories behind the book. It's another really good read, so be sure to join us again next week to hear all about it. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, keep the flame alive.